Okay, just give everybody a minute to settle in. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. Yeah, my name is Jean Borbridge, and I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator at the School of Art Gallery. Thank you for attending the third edition of Kaffeeklatsch in conversation with Kris Alvarez, Susan Alverez, and Pepito Escanlar. For the third edition of Kaffeeklatsch, it brings together relationally engaged theater artist Kris Alvarez, mother and artist Susan Alverez, and family friend and artist Pepito Escanlar for a conversation about home, roots, and identity. A sucker for a really good story, Kris will delve into topics with her guests about growing up as a Filipino immigrant on Treaty 4 and how that shaped their process, inspirations, and practices as an artist. With a large dash of curiosity, play, and laughter, this talk will discuss the trio's similarities and celebrate their differences. You will see that we have ASL interpreters. They are spotlit for the duration of the event for your convenience. We also have closed captioning available at the bottom of your screen. It's under more. You can pick it up and drag it wherever you want on the screen for your convenience. And I would now like to acknowledge the land that we're on. So wherever you are joining us from, I would invite you to think about the land you're on and your relationship to that land and its original caretakers. I'm speaking on behalf of the School of Art Gallery and the School of Art and the University of Manitoba, located on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, Dene, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect these treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the past harms and continual and ongoing violence of settler colonialism on Indigenous peoples. As an educator and outreach coordinator at the School of Art Gallery, I will continue to prioritize the work, stories, and programming of Indigenous artists, Black artists, and people of color. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about how I was connected with Kris. So Blair Fornwald, the curator and director, told me a little bit about Kris, and I was kind of blown away. About her practice and how it's so community oriented and engaged and, well, very much needed, especially on the prairies. I was particularly blown away by her events, the Golden Potlucks, where she brings in an intergenerational cohort of BIPOC folks to discuss and engage together over a meal. And it's like a performance. And it kind of inspired Kaffeeklatsch, I think, very much so. So yeah, I would like to turn it over to Kris, Susan, and Pepito, and we'll have question and answers at the end. And you can either write them in the chat or pop on the screen. Just take it away.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Blair. Thanks to something I've started to lovingly call SOAG. Maybe you call it SOG, School of Art Gallery. Thank you to our interpreters who are making sure everything is accessible for those who need. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for joining all the three of us here in this room having coffee, talking about life, art, and how it all intersects. I'm going to start off by just singing you this. When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what would I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. Now I have children of my own. They they ask their mother what lies ahead. Is that right? Will there be rainbows day after day? Here's what my mother said. Want to sing it with me? Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. Hi, I'm Kris. My last name is Alvarez. And this is my mom, Susan Alverez. Hello. For the purpose of reality, I will be calling her mom when I ask her questions, so you know. And the other dear guest and dear friend on this Zoom and this coffee time is Tito Pete, Pepito Escanlar. I know as Pete Escanlar. I call Tito Pete as a form of respect and also of relationship and warmth. And the three of us have known each other for a little bit, as you can imagine, my mom and I, but Tito Pete has been part of our family for a long time, friends with my mom. I just want to, right away, I'm gonna just share a photo from my parents' 50th anniversary last year in the middle of a pandemic, where we found a nice restaurant, Sky Bistro here in Treaty 4, to have a private function with closest family and friends. And there's Tito Pete, and there's my dad and my mom. Just gonna stop that. There we go. It's gonna be really DIY, folks. I am not a PowerPoint person, so when I share, it'll be like that. So Blair and Jean, as you heard from Jean, they approached me and I felt very honored, you know, to share a little bit of how I see things. So tomorrow, if you join me in a workshop, we'll create and play together. Today, when they asked and invited me, who would you like to sit with? An older artist who you either want to get to know better or want to continue conversation with. And I mentioned right away, well, in my art practice and in my life, my family and my mom's a big part of inspiration, of beauty and aesthetic, and of joy. And so it was important to me that she was part of this conversation for that reason, but also for the reason that she is an artist. And I don't very often get chances to really sit and ask her about how she sees making art, how art relates to her life. I just see her do it. And we go along, you know, and make food and have suppers together, but actually talking about art this way is a real privilege. Feels like a pleasure. So thanks, Mom. And Pete is here because my mom said, you know, Tito Pete is an artist, and I'm like, right. Again, I don't know if you feel this way, anyone else in the room, but you know, there are people in our lives that often we don't get time to just sit and ask about, yeah, how they see art, how they make art, and they might be very close to us. So I feel very, very honored to have you here in the room, Pete, to talk about art making too. And I guess I would like to start by I'm a big fan of trying to locate myself in the moment, presently. And so I'm going to invite everyone in the room to at least put this in their mind right now about where are you coming from today, right now? Where are you coming from right now, today? For example, I'm a daughter, a mother, an artist, a person bored with the pandemic. I live in Heritage area, the neighborhood in Regina, Pile of Bones. I had a lovely dinner with my mom and dad and my brother and my husband and daughters yesterday night. That's where I'm coming from right now. Does that make sense, everyone? So I'm going to ask my two guests, not about where they come from originally or anywhere. You don't have to go far back, just today. Where are you coming from today? And that can be answered however you like, Mom and Pete, in terms of literally where you're coming from, emotionally, how you're feeling today. I'm feeling excited about this. And I'll ask, is it okay if I ask Tito Pete?
Yeah.
Pete, can you give us where you are coming from today?
Hello. Yes. Right now, I'm actually by myself because my wife is in Toronto with our son. We have a granddaughter, and our son requested that if my wife could come and babysit their daughter because he's so scared of the pandemic affecting the daycares. And so my wife is there. So I kept myself busy and just did painting while I'm here, and I mean while I'm by myself. That's what kept me busy. Yeah.
Thank you, Pete. And Mom, where are you coming from today?
Actually, I'm working today. I've been retired I used to work for the government, but I retired like 6 years ago. And then I went back to the workforce, and I'm working here at a long-term care. And I really enjoy it because I'm, in contact with people, and mostly the residents that are, of the golden age,
Yeah.
And it's so much fun. And that, in a way, I can, also teach them like part of my art, like, doing some paintings with them. And also, I play the ukulele like my daughter. So I sing to them. We have a sing along, and we sing, the old standard songs that they know. And I have so much fun with them.
Are you
Very fulfilling.
Yeah, do you get to see them today? Because we're
All
here
the
at her work on her. This is her extended lunch. So
Yeah. So, oh yeah, every day time just flies so fast. I just enjoy just even talking to them, just talking one on one. It's very fulfilling.
how about today, Pete and Mom, about how it is in the world right now? Where are you coming from today in the way the pandemic is right now? How are you feeling right now?
Well, I feel good. I always get advice from our two sons. They're in the medical field, and that helps. They provide us with face masks, and it's a higher grade face mask, which they have access to it, so they provided us with that. And basically, I just stay home most of the time, unless there's some important items that I need to go out and buy, like groceries. But most of the time, I just stay home and paint. And being retired, that's where I spend most of my time.
How are you feeling about the pandemic, Mom?
Oh gosh.
At this, like now?
Yeah.
Because you work with older people.
Yeah. And oh gosh, a year ago it was really like, it was scary, of course. And then now with the vaccination and everything, and there's hope, like, like pretty soon it'll be over. And even with the residents now, they have a brighter you know they're very what you call this they're very hopeful that the end is coming. We don't have to wear mask anymore, and and actually, yes, even the visitation now, it's a great help. Before it was just nobody can come in, but now families can visit, and that's very fulfilling. That's very, yeah, I'm so happy for that, for them.
So there's an interesting mix in the room, and I feel like, yeah, it's a weird time again. It feels like, okay, we're being really careful, and some of us feel like a little bit better because we have our vaccinations or boosters, but it still feels, I don't know. It's a funny feeling. Don't you all feel that? If any of you in the room, I forgot to mention, I invite you, if you are able to, in the Zoom, send in a chat or a message in the chat box, or even on YouTube if you're watching, a comment please locate yourselves. Where are you at right today? And that can be as much as acknowledging what treaty you're in or where you live, but also emotionally where you're at. This is a part of my practice, actually, because I like to locate myself before I dig into a conversation. So I'm going to ask all of us, including this lovely interpreter I'm watching, to feel our feet, our toes, wiggle your toes. Let's squeeze our feet, you know, contract them. Feel our bottom halves of our bodies that we don't see in these screens, our legs. As we keep going into this conversation, I just invite you to just do a moment with me of feeling the ground, taking a big breath with me. As we can, now that we've kind of thought about where we are and where this world is at right now today, let's let that rest so we can dig into a deeper conversation, okay? And so I bring that up so that I can go into asking you again, Tito Pete and Mom, where are you coming from? But now I'm going to ask, where do you come from? So when I say that, and as people of color, you've heard that question so many times, right? I think I have. And I wonder, where do you come from? You can answer that how you wish. And the one thing I'm going to ask when I say that out loud, as visual artists that you are both, and I'm very visual in my art making, what's the first image or images that comes to mind when I say, where do you come from? Does that make sense? Go ahead, Tito Pete. Why don't you start and give us your, where do you come from? You're welcome to answer that how you wish. And if you can think of an image that did come to mind when I asked.
The first thing that comes to mind would be the place where I grew up, and it's the town. And our house was located in front of the marketplace. And we used to have a drugstore that my pharmacist father operated. And between my father and sister, who were both pharmacists, the drugstore operated for about 84 years. And about 5 years ago, because they both passed away, we had to close it, and nobody in the family could continue it. My brothers are already in their 80s, so we just had to close it after 84 years. But anyway, I always like to go back to my childhood days when I used to go to the marketplace and roam around and visit the vendors. And I think in a way, it affected, or it's one of the subjects that I tend to keep going back. Like I paint the marketplace, the vendors, show their faces and their, the humanity of being vendors. And I thought it was quite a contrast with the way we have nowadays, where markets is dominated by big box stores or Amazon. And I thought I'd like to go back to the time when you go face to face with the vendors, and you see their faces. And that's how I painted some of my subjects lately, that I tried to show the dignity and the wrinkles in their faces that may reflect the years of daily struggle to make a decent living. And I think that's, going back to your question, that's what I think of right now.
Yes, thank you. I love that. Do you mind me sharing a photo? I brought one onto my desktop from your Pepito Escanlar. On Facebook, you have a page that's your artwork, right?
Oh, yes.
So I'm just going to share my screen, folks. Oh, look at my desktop. Don't look at my desktop. I'm going to, oh, that's a different one. I took a few photos, but I'm going to go to what you just mentioned. Right?
Yeah. That is the salt vendor, and it's interesting that after I posted it, they said that one vendor said that oh, I used to sell salt and sugar with her, and apparently she's still alive because I took this picture years ago. And that's how I did it, because I used to do freehand sketches. And when I got my camera, it became more convenient to take photographs when I visit the marketplace and just take random pictures.
Yeah.
And I kept them on a file so that, I go back to it and see which ones of those would I feel like painting.
Yeah.
And I did see that again. And I thought, oh, I'd like to paint this and show her face and her, I don't know if I succeeded, but I want to show her pride in her trade.
Yes, I think it does. I think it does. And Tito Pete, when I came to visit you and see your work in your studio at home, it was lovely to see those different faces in the market. I love the picture you just gave us. First of your home, the pharmacy, and then the market. Oh, I love it. I can hear and smell, because I've had the privilege of going back home to Philippines and seeing markets similar. Mom, when you hear this question, where do you come from? Yeah, and do you have an image that comes to your mind?
Oh, well, again, same with Pete. Back in the Philippines, my mother and father are photographers. So, before photography, people go to a studio, right? Like, we don't have like outdoor photography then when I was a little girl. And I would help my mom in the studio, and women would go there, and my mom would have this, this fake clothing, like, let's say.
What do you mean?
Oh, because usually the picture before is only like up to the bust.
Yeah.
So she would have this fake clothing, like a cocktail dress, because a lot of these women can't really afford nice clothes, and so she would put on that. For them to wear, because it's just a bust.
So it's just the top part
and
of
then
it.
we would put the women jewelry and necklace, and then she would put makeup on them. And this is where I really found very interesting, because she taught me how to do it. And so first, the women are so, well, the Filipinos, we don't have, long noses like the North American, right? So,
My mom says that my husband's nose is like this.
and so, we're so preoccupied with our noses that the Filipinos, that they don't have the same noses as the North American. So my mom would put a shade in here on the side, both sides of the nose, and that would make it kind of look, and if you have like a really like wide jaw, he would put a makeup that would make shade it.
Yeah.
So all this I learned from my mom, and we would pencil the eyebrows, and put really, then it was really red lipstick. Boy, when that picture comes out, they look like movie stars. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. But my dad was also a photographer, so he does the retouching of the negatives. So those negatives before were big, like they're big, and he would put it like behind there would be like a magnifying glass in front of him, and he has this really, really fine pencil that would, if your hair was like going like this, he would refine it that it would be smooth in the picture, or he would put like
it's like old school
like
Photoshop.
Yeah. So, our studio was really famous because the women would just go there, and they say, oh, you go to that studio and you come out like a movie star. So I learned it all, and I learned how to do that. Then it was like there was no color, right? So I have to help them make it into a sepia. So let's sepia. Yeah, brown it. So I learned that from my parents, and yeah, and my dad was a self-taught artist. He never went to school for it, but he's just inborn, I think.
It's in his
Yeah,
nature.
just in his nature. Yeah.
So this is interesting,
So-
Mom. You're bringing up a my next question actually for both of you is about what are your earliest, or what's one of your earliest first contacts with beauty? You know, when you think of like when you were young, yeah. And I think you're sharing it right now, just the beauty of the photograph that was created. That's neat. So for you, like, how old were you when you would help? in this?
Oh, that would be, I would be like 10 years old, 11, 12, you know, in that, you know, age.
Mm.
And it's very interesting. And my mother does the developing of the pictures, and I would be in the dark room with her and just watching all this process of doing the pictures.
Yeah, that's
with
neat.
all these formulas. Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah, that's an interesting early version of what beauty. And what you're saying about the noses, all jokes aside, yeah, we're known for having flatter noses. And so this idea of American beauty, or right, that's already coming into the Philippines about wanting to have a longer, or Spanish nose,
Yeah.
I guess,
Yeah.
a longer, not flatter. Interesting first contact with aesthetics. Yeah, Pete, how about you? Do you have any early memories like that of first contact with beauty? And I'm holding that word beauty, you know, very widely.
Yeah, beauty in the sense like external beauty. Probably movies that you see movie stars and you admire that they're so good looking or so beautiful. And of course, that's external. And I
What
think,
movie comes to mind when you say that? Like, what are you thinking in your mind about when you think of the movies back then? Who comes to mind? What Hollywood starlet or actress or actor?
I cannot even remember their names, but it's mostly I go see the movie when years ago. That was a promotion by different products that there were no movie houses in our town. So these products or companies, they come to our town with their portable projectors, and they'll announce in the morning that there'll be a movie at the plaza, and it's an outdoor. And then, of course, people flock at night, and they have these movies. And I still remember the movies. I think it was Heaven Knows Mr. Allison, if I remember right.
Wow.
By Deborah Kerr, I think. Was the, yeah. And I think that's one that stuck in my memory about that movie and the first movie I saw.
And beauty in that way.
Yes. Of course, the story of that was not beautiful because it was about war. But it was, I think, a relationship between a soldier and a nun, and how the soldier respected the nun. Yeah.
Beauty is a funny word, you know. It's a thing that can be interpreted so many ways. So I'll distill it to aesthetic or to art and ask you again. So what were some of the first contacts you had, Pete, with looking at something and being like, that is art? That is art.
I think the first one that I really enjoyed doing was when I started at school. I had a classmate who was really good in drawing, and I was so impressed that I started copying what she was doing. And eventually, I improved by doing that. And then I came in contact with other friends who are also interested in drawing, and by working together, we tend to improve ourselves. But then our measuring stick on how good you are or you were was by copying it so the art would look so almost like a photograph. And I think that's probably not the right way of making a measuring stick, but that's how we base ourselves. Like,
yeah. How old were you? How old were you when that was?
Probably 7, 8, around that age. And then, of course, it went through high school, and we kept doing that, and we tend to try to outdo each other and trying to be better technically.
So hyperrealism, trying to really capture.
Right. Yes.
Neat.
Of course, eventually you get past that and try to, you come to a point when you're satisfied that I've already proven myself to be technically good. I don't need to follow that anymore, so I can shift and break the rules now.
When does that happen? When did that happen for you? Do you feel
When I was already in Canada.
in Canada?
Yeah, because when I came to Canada, I think I became better because, well, it came about when, first of all, I came to Canada and I was busy with my work. So I painted as a hobby. If it comes only once in a while, to have a free time. But after 8 years in Canada, I think, or 9 years, recession came and I lost my job. So I had lots of time to paint. So I did painting and painting. And of course, at first I did realism, like it was like resuming what I did in the past. Then it came to a point where I start asking myself, why do I keep doing this? I don't need to prove myself that I'm capable of doing this. So I start deviating, and at the same time, I started using acrylics and canvas. So that's when I felt like I'm freer. I'm freer, and I can do the subjects that I want and the technique that I want, and not worry about what others would think about it or judge me that
That's interesting.
not as
I have a
good as
question about that, but I'm going to hold it because I want to return to see what my mom says. That's really neat, Pete. I love how you shared what that looked like from as a child, right? And then how you go, right. Anyways, I'll ask the question I have in mind. I'll hold and just bring it back to you, Mom, about the first contact with art. When you're like, oh, this is art, when you regarded it that way.
Well, I think that makeup thing and the result of
At the
that
photo.
makeup of the photo, that was art to me.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
art to me. And then, of course, my father was an artist, a self-taught artist. So I'm always, I'm surrounded with that. But I've never, when I was a kid, I've never, did any drawing or anything. But I did a lot of like, I was crafty.
Yeah.
I made my own purses, and I did stuff that are like craft stuff. But I'm always like that since I was a little girl.
When your dad
So-
would paint, would you watch him paint?
Oh yeah, and and he was really good. He, one time he painted President Nixon in oil on canvas.
What?
Yeah,
Really?
and he said, "I'm going to mail it to the White House." And we just all like, "Come on, you're mailing it to the White House." He says, "Yeah, I'm gonna mail this to the White House."
Oh my
This is
God.
President Nixon.
To Nixon?
So he did mail it. And
Wow.
my sisters and my brothers, they just, they're laughing. No, they will not, But lo and behold, after a few months, he got a letter from the White House. And it was signed by Rosemary Woods, I think is the secretary
Oh,
of,
wow.
and it was in the White House stationery. Yeah, that they received my dad's painting.
I've never heard that story.
Oh, and so we got really like, see, see, the White House received my painting, and he had that letter in his wallet. Kept it in his wallet.
Yeah.
Because he was so happy that the White House, received the painting. But anyway,
I want to see the painting for sure. I wish you had a picture of it. Because I've seen, so my Lolo, my mom's dad, Lolo Reyes, who's no longer on earth, and his paintings are beautiful. I regret not having captured a photo to share with everyone of his paintings. They're beautiful. And I can see where his brushstroke and hand comes into your work, Mom.
yeah, but I never did paint early on.
I'm going to just show one of my mom's pieces here. Oops. I'm gonna just show her something my mom painted. When was that? Last year?
Oh, this is quite
A little while ago.
4 years ago.
And in terms of beauty, I just want to bring up how, aesthetics, how flowers is a really big part of your eye, Mom. Like I see it in your garden, of course, on your table when you set up a table for dinner. And I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute. And just, yeah, so in terms of beauty, that's interesting because I know when I've thought of Lola Reyes' work, there are flowers and how that carries through is really, really neat. I want to keep moving on with how, so you've both mentioned a little bit about how you related to art then, back home as a child, getting older, and Uncle Tito Pete here mentioned the Philippines and then coming to Canada and how that changed. That changed your relationship to how to make art. I'm curious to hear just a bit more from both of you about that, like how you relate to art now. And that can be how you appreciate it by what you see, but also by what you make. How do you feel you relate to art now?
Well, after having worked in the architectural field for 40 years and having my children grown up already, I felt that it's time for me to spend more time painting, which is my first love. So I did retire 5 years ago and started painting more and more. And my subject really ranged from, observing the contrast between Canada and the Philippines. And in Canada, for example, my subjects are varies from urban landscapes, what I see in Regina, the contrast between the old heritage buildings and the modern glass buildings. Sometimes I paint based from life experiences, looking back. One example might be last few months ago, two of my close relatives passed away in the span of 1 week of each other. And what I did was I painted, I painted an empty chair, but I did it in a semi-abstract way so that, I could project more what that empty chair represents. That empty chair, for example, is empty, but it's full of fond memories and colorful experiences. And by doing it in semi-abstract way, it became more symbolic rather than if I were to point it and paint it in realism, nobody would probably pay attention to it because it's just a picture of a chair. So the subject sometimes dictates what way to paint it. Another way might be when my son was in Afghanistan as a part of the Canadian Armed Forces. I painted a scene of Remembrance Day in Regina at Victoria Park. And
Can you share it while you keep talking? Is that okay?
Sure, yeah.
Continue, Pete. I'll just bring it up.
That was in 2011, I think. And of course, my wife was quite worried about my son being there. He was there for 11 months. And it so happened that on Remembrance Day, I attended it. And I saw a person in the audience with a shawl that is checkered black and white. And it reminded me of a Middle Eastern leader whose scarf was similar to that. Mm. So I took a photograph of it and I used it as a basis for this painting, and I call it Remembrance Day. It's in honor of the veterans and the soldiers who served the war and served to keep the freedom that we enjoy today. So that this painting was actually featured in one of the urban landscape projects in downtown Regina.
It's beautiful. I like to see the variation from that kind of work and the work you did with the salt cellar. I mean, the style of the painting, which, oh, let me see if I can share that one more time, because I want to ask you, so the style with the colors and the geometry of it, sorry, for lack of a better term from me, I associate that kind of feeling of work in Filipino artists' work. I have that rooster picture, the farmer, or that to N. Pat Fernandez, when I've seen some of his work.
It's cubism.
There's, you know what I mean, Tito Pete? Like,
Yes, and I think we're all influenced by other artists in some way. But the idea is to appreciate it and put a part of ourselves into that. So it's not strictly copying, but rather make it our own. It's almost like somebody singing a song composed by others, but they put something beyond that it becomes their own version in a way.
I'm always, I love that you brought that up, because I'm always curious about it. You know, I think my experience as art making is seeing something I like that someone else makes and going, hey, yeah, I want to try a version of making that myself, whether it's visual, dance, song, or theater for me. And we all, like, you do that too, right? You see an image and you're like, I want to try a version of that. And yeah, the fine line of whether you're copying or whether you're interpreting, that's always interesting. And I wonder that because in Filipino culture, one observation I have, the musicians back home who have like really thick dialect accents from where they're from, but when they get on stage and sing a Beatles song or a song from a top 40 band, they mimic and imitate exactly like what you were talking about, Pete, with trying to draw and copy exactly like it is already. I remember noticing that in my early 20s when I was in the Philippines, like, wow, the musicians are really talented and they're recreating the exact version of this song that a band plays that I've heard on the radio. And okay, so my question about this is, you know, that's a form of, yeah, trying to prove yourself, Tito Pete, like you mentioned, right? Do I have the technique behind it? So I'm curious how coming here to Canada, Mom, and seeing the kind of artwork you see and then making your own paintings. Yeah, how does living in Canada change? How do you think it's changed, or as a lack of a better word, changed or informed or affected the way you paint? Has it? You feel like if you'd stayed home, would you be painting the way you paint now?
I haven't, you know, I'm not like Pete. Pete has painted ever since, you know, and I just started painting like 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And my sister, who's a real painter and, you know, has gone through school, you know,
She went to
she
art
went to
school.
an art school.
Yeah.
And she came, and she's from Las Vegas, and she came to Regina. And she said to me, why don't you paint? I said, yeah, I really like to paint, but I really don't know how. So she said, I'm here for a week. I'm going to show you. So she, you know, she taught me, she used acrylic, and she taught me, okay, so this is the first thing you do. And, you know, I mean, we're doing flowers. This is, oh, you know, you do some massing first, and then you can do highlight and all that. And I realized, oh, yeah, that's right. I mean, you know, it's not that hard. And then and he says, I know you're scared, right? She says, oh yeah, because you know, I haven't really, you know, painted then. So
Yeah.
she said, don't worry, that acrylic, you know, you're gonna, when you're painting, you are God. She said, you can erase it or you can add it. You are God
You're
when
the
you are
creator.
painting,
Yeah.
you know. So that's kind of inspiring. But yeah, so I do, I don't do like Pete has done, you know, the detailed one, paintings you have it. That's so beautiful, but you know, it's not my, you know,
Yeah.
my style, you know. I like more the, you know, the what you call it, contemporary, and you know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting to see your work and then look at your father's paintings or your sister, your
Yeah.
auntie, and to see some familial similarities, like how you are, that's naturally in you from family. And
Yeah,
you said
just-
art's been around you all your life. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's I love colors though. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, it's the color that attracts me first.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share a picture from my screen of my mom's just food. Simply another form of aesthetic and beauty. It looks delicious. Look at this. So this is a cup of coffee.
No, it's chocolate.
This is hot chocolate, native chocolate
Native chocolate.
that we have in the Philippines. It comes in these chunky tablets, and Mexicans have that too, that
Yeah.
chocolate. And then the mango, you can see the sticky rice, which is a specific color because it's a different kind of rice, not just white rice. And then you've added this flour. This is like a picture my mom took from just having a snack. But the art, the composition, hey, Tito P,
Yes.
of her meal, right? I just find that interesting, and I'll show one more. This was my daughter's, I don't know which birthday, that she said, Lola, can we please have kamayan, which is a feast where you eat with your hands at a table that has banana leaf all over it on the table. And then mom lays a big bed of rice. And then on top of the rice, you can see pieces of fish, chickens, these little tiny lumpia, those little egg rolls that are Filipino, the mango, the chili sauce,
Shrimps.
the shrimps. Yum, yum. I bring this up because I have always been around an artful world because my family, my parents, my mom and dad have always, art has always been part of regular daily life. And I wonder, Tito Pete, if that's the case, you know, when I think about art, it's always been, and I'm curious, and I talk to many artists of color to say, in your culture, do you feel like day to day that was just always threaded in, like whether it's how you set the table like that, like that's a beautiful table, right? Compared to, I can think about sitting in the living room and my dad's composing music and my mom is making jewelry or painting.
Yeah, I think in my case, I look at art sometimes as a way of expressing my thoughts. And I may look back at the time when I felt like I was at a crossroads. And that was when determining which career to pursue. My first choice was, of course, fine arts or painting. But there was no course like that at the time in our province. So my second choice was architecture. So what I did is to paint a piece which I called Crossroads, wherein I painted at the center was a pedestal, like an ionic pedestal. And on the left was keyboards and monitor. And on the right was paint tubes that I arranged into some kind of a winding stair that led to behind the pedestal.
Oh.
And the idea is, I don't know which way to take. And, you know, eventually both have the potential of reaching the top of that pedestal. But what I did was I took a phrase from the poem by Robert Frost called Road Not Taken.
Yes.
So the keyboards, the letters in the keyboards, I changed it so that it will read a portion that says two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the one that was less traveled or something like that.
Yeah.
So unless you look closely, you won't really notice that that was the message on the keyboard. But basically, that expressed what dilemma I had at the time.
Yes, and looking back now, you must be so grateful that, you know, grateful, quote unquote, that you lost your job, like that you had to make this decision, because now here you are
Yes, I'm thankful for my career in architecture because it supported my family, and
Sure.
you know, after 40 years on that field, I felt that it's time for me to enjoy myself. I'm getting old, so I have to enjoy and do my painting.
And so I bring this questioning up. I'm the line of questioning Tito and Mom is coming from a place of as an immigrant, you know, because as an immigrant kid, it was made clear that art is essential to life, part of life, part of the fabric of life, always. And it might not sustain you economically, financially. And so there was always that messaging, like, you know, maybe don't be just a full-time artist, Kris. And in my heart is like, but I'm an artist fully. I think it's hard for me to come to separate it and go, I'll be a teacher and then maybe I'll do a little art on the side. And I asked this to you, Mom, because when you grew up, like Pete, there was no art school option.
In the island where I'm from, our university that didn't offer fine arts, just like you did.
Yeah.
And I have to go to Manila, which is the bigger island, but we just can't afford it. No, I just can't afford it. Coming from a family of 7, I can't afford to go to Manila and study there. And
Did you want to?
No, I just know it won't happen because my parents couldn't afford it because there's 7 of us and we're going to university. So yeah, so fine arts, and then I think architecture, no way. I'm bad in math. I ended up taking business administration,
Yeah.
which it's not really my field, but that was then. My mom wanted me to be a nurse, which I'm not really into it. So yeah. And talking about that, here's Kris, my daughter, and she said to me, Mom, I want to take up fine arts. Like I said, okay, there might not be money in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, maybe you can take up nursing, just like my mom said.
Yeah.
Take up nursing and do art on the side.
Yeah. This was a serious conversation. In grade 12. When I was in grade 12, we went to my mom's eldest sister's place in San Francisco. My auntie Indai, rest in peace. My auntie Indai was driving me and my cousin, her daughter Melanie. We were in the back seat of Auntie Indai's car in San Francisco, driving to the Esprit outlet. I was so excited. We were going shopping at Esprit, and I was in grade 12. And Auntie Indai literally pulled the car over to the side, stopped the car mid-travel to the outlet, turned around to us in the back seat and said, Christine, your mom mentioned you like theater and art, but you're going to go into nursing. You're going to do nursing, you're going to do well, and then on the side, you can do the acting. And then she turned around and continued to drive and bring us to the outlet. And I really thought there would be no way I could integrate my passion with what my day-to-day job would be. And it took me a while to find the way and be creative about it. Yes, I do offer workshops and classes to kids, teens, adults, but now I'm comfortably and thankfully and luckily making art, and it still is able to not just feed my soul, but my belly and the kids at my table in my house. And I wish that when I think back to immigrants like my mom, like you, Tito Pete, or anyone who comes here and has that passion, but then knows they have to pay the bills. I think there's many people in the world, brown or black, white, who understand this. How do we, pay the bills and still do the things we love to do? And so as Filipinas coming to this country, Mom, when we first were in Toronto, I have very early memories of Windsor and Toronto. And there's a picture of me in my red rocking chair drinking a bottle, and my mom selling her art pieces, jewelry and such, on Yonge Street. It, you know, so they're like that when I was 2.
No, like,
3.
No, 5.
Not
No, yeah,
even.
3. Yeah, 3 years.
So art is a part of you, and it's interesting you say your sister, who's a real artist. I maintain you're a real artist, and so you know there is what I'm bringing up, Tito Pete, is there is a challenge there, and I think there's a big challenge for artists who are newer to coming to Canada or immigrants.
Yes.
Have their art recognized too, right? Recognition that it's real art.
Yes. Being an immigrant, there's always a tendency for us to work harder because we have to prove ourselves that we deserve to be here and we are competent. And one thing that, in my case, for example, I graduated in architecture, but not having a degree in fine arts was to some degree made me feel that feeling of not being good enough or something like that. So you have to work harder, and sometimes it's even if you succeeded, you win awards, but you feel like you don't deserve the accolades. You still doubt yourself. And you try to set a higher standard for yourself to overcome that. And I'm consciously aware of that and try to overcome that. But you cannot really erase that completely. And I think by working harder, I actually improve myself and my self-confidence by being aware of that situation.
Do you feel like age comes into play, like being older and going like, yeah, you know, yeah, I don't need to have all the, you know, the boxes that I check?
It's not more of an age, but more of experience, I guess, that after having done artwork for several years, that's where confidence comes in. It's not the age, because you can be old and not have the experience. So
right. So the
but
experience.
it's always being the self-thought, I think, that has some kind of that still gives you a feeling of insecurity, that you still have to overcome that. But it's, you know, once you overcome that, then you'll be comfortable.
Do you feel that, Mom, like in terms of your validation as a person who can make beautiful paintings, jewelry, beautiful jewelry, artwork?
Well, I'm always, if I sell my art, it's not because of the money, but it's because somebody liked my work. Somebody liked my work. Somebody putting my work on the wall of their houses. And that's very fulfilling. You know, it's not, you know, for the money, or, you know, it's just like you're just happy that somebody like your work. And putting your work on their wall is something.
Yeah.
You know?
That's interesting, Mom. I like that. I really like that,
You know.
because it takes it down to a very humble and good place. You know, I get, there's a lot of ways to get caught up, as you were saying, Tito Peter. Well, I'm hearing, you can get caught up in the titles and the identity and the accolades, right? But why? Like, and I think that's why the work that I make, I try really hard to just the human experience. Like, what's, you know, when I create work, and I'm going to share a couple of those photos. Oh, that's that food. Yum. I'm going to, you know, here's the project that Jean and Blair were recalling, called Golden Potluck. So here we are in a very standard room. If I had billions of dollars, I would like, the decorating I would have done before this event, you know, the aesthetic experience, but the communal, the human experience here of these 1, 2, 3 circles of humans of different ages and different cultures, quietly being together and listening to, I'm going to get a different photo, this inner circle, this inner table of women, older women, coming from different places, like this woman here in the blue, who Gertrude comes from Germany originally. This woman with the flower print, Kukum Sharon Ajikute, comes from Lebret, and my mom. One more photo of the table. When I make art, this is my way of making art. And I get hung up, Tito Pete, of it. Is it real art? Because it's a community event. There's food. There's no stage, no proscenium arch of a theater space. The space is all performance in the sense of the performance of connecting, of relating, of experiencing the aesthetic beauty of communion, you know, of real connection. That for me happens when there's food laid at a table, when there are older ones to share experiences.
And spontaneous, I think, and being
Yeah.
spontaneous, it's real. It's real. There's no preparation. There might be some anticipation of what might occur, but it's still spontaneous. And I think that's in that regard, I would say that it's art in a way. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the thing, you know, I work really hard at creating the spontaneity or allowing the spontaneity, but under the undercurrent, Tito and Mom, I've planned a lot. Like I've curated, right? Like I've curated who's there in terms of the guests or what the song will be that I'll present. There's a reason I play Que Sera Sera at the beginning of this conversation. You know, there's a reason I'm going to sing a verse right now of All My Life's a Circle. And I wonder, Tito and Mom, maybe it's my quiet love of old musicals, and like how in life all of a sudden we just break into a song together and the world looks a little prettier. This is a song I learned when I was 5, and I just want to share it before we start coming to a close to see if there's anyone in the room who wants to ask a question. It's called All My Life's a Circle, and I'm just gonna sing like the chorus of it. All my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. All my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. The season's spinning round again, the years keep rolling by. I found you 1,000 times, I can't remember when. I get this funny feeling that we'll all be together again. There's no straight lines make up my life or where the road has been. Our love is like a circle. Let's go round one more time. I just messed up the verse. All my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. All my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again, the years keep rolling by. I guess when I was 5 and I learned that with my dad in the living room, I had no idea what that would mean, and that was just a song I would sing when the Titos and Titas came over for supper. And Harry Chapin Carpenter, who wrote that song long ago, you know, I think of it once in a while because of the cycles that bring us back. And I attest that those cycles happen because of art, that they can't exist without art, that cycle. Yeah, and I'm really happy, Tito Pete and Mom, that you're here with me to to talk a bit about where things come from in our lives that bring us to where we are right now in our art practices and in our art making. And I wonder in the room if we're at, I think 106, 108. I invite anyone in the room, if you have a question for either of my lovely guests, for me, for the group of us, please throw it into this chat box, if you like. And while we're waiting to hear, and I'll ask the wizard behind the curtain, Kayla, if anything does come, just you can on microphone let me know. But I'm going to close off by getting some closing thoughts from Tito and from my mom. So we talked a lot about coming from where we are now. And so I look forward at the horizon and in the tumultuous world, and I wonder, where are your sights, Tito? Where are you looking towards? And I do mean in life, but also in art making.
Well, I'd like to continue painting as long as I can, as long as my eyes would allow me and my physical ability allows me. And I'd like to leave a legacy that I usually paint for myself, other than commissions, for example. But mainly I paint because I enjoy painting. And I thought that when I'm gone, that's something that I could leave for my children. And that becomes my legacy.
I was going to ask you about the definition for you of legacy, because it's a word many people have different versions of, right? And so when you say legacy, you're thinking of your children and your grandchildren?
Or something to people to remember me by, that, this body work that I did, that I helped other people, made them happy. And basically that's, just be good to other people and help people as much, whenever you have the opportunity to help and make the lives of other people better. And not become a burden.
You have such a generous heart, Tito Pete, in terms of your life, but also your art making. I know of an artist, Patrick Fernandez, who spoke very fondly and respectfully of you and the help you've given him, the mentorship. And I think that's lovely. With your art making, especially since you're home alone, you have all the space to yourself. I hope it's okay if I share one more picture of yours, Tito. Where is it? Will it come out? Another painting that was on your page.
Yes, that one is one of our close relative who recently passed away. And I used her photograph to depict the Philippine tradition of mano po, or kissing the hands of our elders to show respect and admiration or appreciation of their experience. And what I wanted to depict here is the reverence in the face of the children. Actually, the children here are my grandkids. And I just want to show, that's why I use realism, because I want to depict their faces of admiring the elder, because all their eyes are focused towards this older person.
Yes. Oh yeah, there is definitely a feeling of that respectful and looking towards that older one.
Yeah. And the background, I showed there the features of the old heritage houses in the Philippines, the stained glass and all that too.
Oh, I didn't even, I'm sorry, I'm gonna bring that back in. Close it quickly. See if I can get that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Tito Pete, you always have tiny details that I really appreciate. When we were looking at your work together when I was visiting you, remember, I noticed that one, what was it? In the water.
Oh, actually, I was quite impressed. I did the painting of ebb tide to show the life, the ebb and flows of the tide, and I hid my graduation ring on that. And you're the first one actually who saw it. And I was quite impressed.
Oh, that's funny. But you leave little pieces that are identity of you, eh?
Yes, and I never thought that anybody would notice it.
I have an eagle eye. I get that from my mom. She has good eyes. Yeah. So looking forward, Mom, in terms of making art, I mean, it's been a while since you've been able to have your art in sales outside at art fairs.
Yeah, I would continue it, and it's such a relaxing thing to do. You know, it's very relaxing and very fulfilling, and I sure need, you know, more, you know, get more, learn more techniques, you know, and yeah, and continue on with it, and continue on with this, you know, the residents here, painting with them, and you know,
That's
I
a good
enjoy that,
idea,
and you know, continue on with the singing with them.
Yeah, that's
And-
so nice. that
But
you
I
do
sure
that.
do want to learn more about you know, painting.
Yeah, learning
Yeah,
more. Like
learning more.
when you're older,
Yeah.
Tito and Mom, like any advice for, or what would you say, you know, for someone who's in their, like I'm getting close to 50, and I know a lot of people who start their art careers or their art practice later in life, you know, and for different reasons. Any thing you would share with someone who's, let's say, newer to this country and newer to making art or wanting to make more art?
I would say encourage them to do what they love to do, and don't dictate that, oh, you should take this course. And I know a lot of uh, parents from our country would want their children to become doctors, lawyers, and all that. But I would say that let them choose what they want. And actually, years ago, I heard somebody say that her daughter loves to sing, and the other members of the family said that well, she should take her education first and take this course or such like that. And his point is that the child may follow you, but there's some degree of resentment there, that they followed you, but in the end, there's some resentment that until you're already gone, they still blame you for forcing them to do what they want, what you want, rather than what they want. So I did that to my children. Let them decide what they want, and yeah, and I'm glad that they're successful in their own fields. So for artists, if you want to pursue art, go ahead and just be the best that you can be. And one of my co-workers actually said that, what if your son wants to be a poet? And I said, well, let him be the best poet that he can be, and that will make him happy.
Wow, that's so, thank you. That's so good. It's such a fiery, you know, you're igniting the idea of, yeah, like what else can, like, this is the life, right? This is the one life. And,
Yes.
and what can you make of that fully? I feel that. I feel that even now when it's really hard, when it's tiring because of the pandemic. A lot of people come to me and say, how do you keep going and making art? And I go, well, like, what else am I going to do?
It's the passion.
It's in my nature.
Yeah.
And it's also, if we look around at the pandemic, what is the first, or one of the first things people are turning to for comfort? It's a song on their playlist. It's a book on their shelf. It's a painting that they have in their room to look at. It's movies and TV. It's art. How about you, Mom? People who are, or someone who's, like, say, coming here and wants to make more art, what would you tell them from what you've experienced as a person who's always made art, but also does other jobs?
Yeah, well, you know, yeah, like pursue whatever, like Pete was saying, if you know, love art, like, hey, you're the best example. You pursued your art,
Yeah.
and which I was not
Yeah.
agreeable at first.
Yeah, but you
And,
weren't like what Pete was saying, like you weren't like, no, you can't, like
No, I didn't say no, you can't. But
you were just worried.
I'm worried as a mother. I worry. Okay, how is it gonna be?
Of course.
Livelihood. You have bills to pay, or yeah. So yeah, and I'm glad you chose and you pursue it because you really love it. Yeah. You're the best example.
Kris, I had a question.
Yeah.
I was wondering what led you to Golden Potluck? What was your first inspiration to do that work?
Thanks for asking. So Common Weal Community Arts in Regina invited me to do a residency in my neighborhood under this program they called Respond to Racism. They were seeing the work I was already doing with another show, a project called Burnt Sienna. And they asked me, Risa Payant and Shauna Dunn approached me and said, would you do a year residency or 6 months in your neighborhood and think about how your artwork in this community? And I was like, wow, that's huge. I don't know. What does that mean? Like, what do I do? And I said, yes, I would. I'd love to. And I began going around my neighborhood going, who is here? And realizing, wow, there's such a diversity in my neighborhood between very old immigrants, old Polish, Ukrainian, German, and very young immigrants, newer, indigenous friends and neighbors, and then a lot of friends I knew in my own world of Fadadance, and so I was overwhelmed. I was like, how do I approach any of this? So I slowly did little workshops with groups like the Regina Immigrant Women's Center that's down the street from me. They had a program called New Stars. New Stars run by Ritu Kalra, a good friend of mine now. And I'm actually working with them right now. I'll let you know what that means. But Ritu was having the senior citizen program. So this for older immigrants, they would meet once a week and do activity, knitting, different little arts and crafts, dance, and sometimes just coffee time. And I love that she called them the New Stars. I thought that was a great name for the older immigrants. And so I met with them, and I met many times with them for coffee, for knitting, and for dance. One time we all got up and there was a microphone and someone had their phone and would bring up a song they wanted to play and put it up to the microphone. That was the sound system. And someone would lead us in Bhangra dancing. One of the older Chinese women would lead ballroom dance. And one of the Indian women showed us this Bhangra dancing. And I was like sitting with them for many coffees. And I just like, these people are not heard. And they have so much to share. There's so much wisdom in the experiences that these people have had. And so because my practice was already, nurtured by this curiosity to bring other voices in the room and share what it's like being you here on Treaty 4, I wanted to distill that to the older ones. And because there's this neighborhood where I look out my window and see the Orthodox Ukrainian church, and then I see across the, down the way is Neoyatina Friendship Center, where Indigenous beading workshops happen, and then I see some Turkish women doing cooking class. Like, it was just so rich, and I was like, the older ones let's bring them together. What if I have my mom and an older Indigenous woman, an older European woman, and an Indian woman come and have tea, and we talk about family recipes. We talk about what it was like to be a kid. We share some of these little tidbits. That's where it began, and I really, it grew from there. And the idea of Golden Potluck, Jean, where we have this table in the middle and the circles of chairs out around us, is my reflection of experiences as a kid traveling to see family, where typically the older ones, my mom or dad and their siblings, would have a table spread with tons of food. They would all sit at it and laugh and share stories and reminisce. And then the kids would always just be around, you know, running, sitting around, and doing other things. And we would come in and listen and try to grab some food or get some snacks. And I wanted to find a way to almost create that feeling where we're privileged to just listen in a little bit to these older ones and what they have. And that's why it's golden, because of them being the older ones. And potluck being, oh boy, a big part of growing up. My mom would host many potlucks. I've been to so many Filipino potlucks and other people's potlucks. And I've always loved them because it's just the best of every world, right? You get to try food from someone else's family recipes. I love the real potluck. I'm saying quote unquote, not the white one where it's heavily organized. Like, who's bringing the salad things? Who's bringing the sweets? I like the chaos of like, maybe we'll all bring cake and we'll have to eat cake, but it never happens. And I think there's something about potluck that for me is synonymous to my practice, because I go, can't we trust the audience or participants, the guests or the performers, that they will all bring what they bring, which is very different than what I will bring. And that will create a rich experience. I love that notion, right? Of like trusting the devising gods or the gods of chaos and spontaneity, as Pete brought up earlier, because there's a lack of trust lately that everyone can roll up their sleeves and do their best. Again, as Tito Pete said, you know, where we can actually, we're all trying, we're pitching in. Sure, some people aren't doing it as much. Whatever. Don't worry about them. Let's concentrate on who is at the table, who's bringing the lasagna from their grandma's recipe, the bucket of chicken from KFC because they didn't cook, you know, and let's enjoy what's there, because that's really special. So that's the spirit of it. And let me tell you an update, because I've recently been reacquainted with new stars and I'm working with them right now. About 20 different senior citizens from the Arab, Chinese, Indian community who are part of New Stars. We're creating a show, a theater show, about stories that they want to share, about isolation, and also about childhood. So thanks for bringing up Golden Potluck and for cherishing it, Blair and Jean. And I really look forward to doing them again, because I think there's room for it in the world later on.
Wow, thank you so much for that insight to your work. And I just wanted to thank Pepito and Susan for your, sharing your beautiful practices, painting and craft, and the origins of where that beauty comes from. And Kris, like, facilitating this amazing conversation. If there's any other folks who would like to shout out a question, I think we have time for one or two.
And it's okay if there isn't. It was a full conversation. These two were so generous. They shared so much. So.
Oh, so generous.
Yeah. I apologize, Tito and Mom, that we don't have food. I'm sorry. I
No
should have
problem.
delivered some to you. Especially since you're home alone.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. We're almost out of time, Jean, but I really want to plug tomorrow's hangout if anyone wants to hang out with me.
It's full right now.
Okay.
But if you are interested, you can email me at soag. I'll put it in the chat right now. soag educator, and I will put you on the wait list. But yeah, that will be an amazing workshop
Oh,
super rich and full. I'm so excited for it.
we'll have fun. We'll have fun. It'll be, yeah, connective. I hope it'll be connective even in the power of Zoom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it'll be, I look forward to doing that tomorrow. And you just asking the simple question about Golden Potluck has rekindled my right. That's where I'm at in terms of, I'm always curious how we like really truly celebrate how different your family's recipe is to mine, to someone else's, but then there's such similarity, you know, such similarity, because the foundation is under love and certain fierce love that comes only from when you have a community, whether you call it family or not, that you need to protect. And you know, that's important. Thank you, Pete, and thank you, Mom, so much.
Yeah, thank you too for making me part of this. And thank you, Jean, Blair, Kaylin, and Rachel
Yes.
for organizing this.
Thank you.
Thank you both, all three, for such a lovely conversation. It's so nice to like learn about your work and to listen in.
Well, we will end it there. And yeah, I just can't thank you enough. We have a few comments. Thank Reva Stone says, thank you, the three of you, for sharing your lives with us. JB says, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for your generous, rich talk and letting us into your thoughtful and beautiful worlds.
Aw, thanks. Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Have a good
you.
rest of your day.